I just thought I'd bring us up to date on the latest BSA A65 engine that I'm working on. And obviously there's one almost completed down there. There it is on the workbench, perhaps you can just see it. And we're just waiting on some primary drive belts for that one, for its owner, to arrive, and I'll be fitting one new one and he'll have a spare one, and then that one will be done. But this one here, this was brought in by its owner, already dismantled, and or largely dismantled, but he left it to me to dismantle the bottom end and get the crank out. The gearbox was already out. I've already discussed that. That's sorted and put back in. There was play in the timing side bush, between the bush and the crankshaft, and I've already discussed that as well actually. But we're at a stage now where we're ready to take a few bits up to Aeron, as I call it, Temple Bar actually, the other side of Lampeter, between Lampeter and Aberyron. And what I'm going to do, as we've done in the last couple of rebuilds that have needed a timing side bush sorting out and a regrind or whatever, we've got a worn -10 journal there, and we had a worn timing side bush at -10, so we had a play between the two of about 4 or 5 thou. So this has got to be reground. Now the next stop needn't necessarily be -20. I've got a bush there at -20, but that may possibly not really have to go much beyond that. What we usually do is we get that might be sort of honed out a little bit to make sure it's absolutely true, so that'll make it less than -20 probably, and more than likely. And we might end up, like I said before, with a grind on this of perhaps something like -17 or -15 or whatever. Certainly won't have to go down to the full 20 thou undersize, which will keep a little bit of meat in store on the crank for future regrinds should it ever need them or whatever. I'm going to have the big ends checked as well. They seem to be good. So I'll be heading up to Aeron Engines with this crankcase with the timing side bush already fitted. I fitted that, and take the crank along, and then he'll check and measure up and see if there was any distortion or anything when this went in. I very much doubt that there was actually, because I got the crankcase baking hot and this went in with a suitable mandrel without too much effort or force. So I've got a feeling that all should be well there, but he may well be able to hone it out a little bit, save taking quite so much material off this, and in the process make absolutely sure that this is perfectly round and hasn't distorted in any way going in. Like I say, I think it's unlikely. And then grind this to suit, so we get probably between 1/2 thousandth of an inch and 1/1000th of an inch clearance between this and the bush when it's all done. So like I say, we've done a couple of engines recently like that, and that seems to have worked. I've also got the old valve guides out, and valves, they were really wobbly in the guides, the old valves. I never actually made a video of that, but there was some terrible wear, and the valve seats were worn as well. So I fitted new guides, got new valves, I've recut the valve seats, ground the valves in, so that's all done. One valve isn't actually fitted yet because this lot came obviously with the original valves, and the springs were okay and the collets were in there, but 1/2 a collet is missing, or one collet is missing, so there's one valve that I haven't been able to fit. All the others are in with their springs. I've got collets coming, so we're on home straight with the cylinder head. I've got the outer race of the drive side main bearing out of the crankcase already, because I think we better be fitting a new bearing on the drive side after all the sort of good things that we're doing to the crank. And I have mentioned to the owner, but I've not heard yet, whether he would like me to go shopping for some new upgrade conrods or whether he wants to carry on with these. As I've mentioned a couple of times, there was an instance of an engine I rebuilt a few years ago that got up to 3,500 miles and then stuck a conrod through the crankcases. Now out of about 20 that I've done, that is the only one. And I'm certainly not one to go scaremongering or anything, but in view of that, I'd just like to give my customers, the engine owners, a choice while the thing is in bits. And if I'm told, no, it's all right, put the old conrods back in, obviously I will do. And equally, if I'm asked to fit new conrods, then I'll do that. So I'm still waiting on that one really, but it's not up to me to sort of say, right, you're having new conrods, whether you can afford them or not. So we'll just see where we're going with that one. But most of the bits that I got here, I've got laid out, ready for a bit more attention at Aeron, and all cleaned up, gasket faces cleaned up and everything, ready for reassembly. So it shouldn't really be too long after the crank and this time inside crankcase have had a little holiday before we start putting this lot back together again and making. I won't be making a complete A65 engine because the owner's got the barrels and pistons and a few other bits, but I'll be fully assembling the bottom end, and the cylinder head will be ready for him to put back on it when he puts the rest of it together. So that's where we're at with BSA A65s up to date.